This story is kind of unique. It comes from Borneo, and it's hard to figure out, is this actually where this story came from if you looked at the projected principles. But there's another story called the tiger's whisker, that's oftentimes attributed to Africa, but is mostly contributed to Korea. We'll tell that tomorrow. And then, of course, there's the story of how the Buddha became the Buddha. And what about that story makes things unique? Okay, but here we go. Let's talk about this one that really brings home the idea of family in a very ironic way. Tell the story.
They fought.
What happens
and
next?
The diamond's like, do you want it? And then he's like, no, nothing.
They fought, and then they...
What happens next?
They formed into...
Yeah.
At the end of the bank, when they came together...
Half a boy!
They form into one.
Do you think they looked at each other with that one good eye? Do you think they smiled at each other, that crooked smile? And then they joined at the head, the shoulder, the hip, and the leg, and then they lived happily ever after? Is that what you think? No! No way, because that's not the way stories go. And that's not the way your life is going to go either. These boys came together. They began to struggle. They began to fight. They rolled down on the bank of that mighty river, and they splished and they splashed water and mud in every direction. They fell into the river, and if you would look down, you would have seen a bubbling and a boiling like you have never seen before. If you would have looked even longer, you would have seen that bubbling and that boiling turn into nothing. And if you would have looked still even longer, you would have seen emerge from that river one whole united youth. Not knowing which foot to put in front of the other, the boy began to make his way back to the village from which he had started. He walked up to the first toothless old man. He said, "Excuse me, sir. Pardon me. I'm confused. I'm disoriented. I don't know where I am. Would you please tell me where I am?" And that old man smiled. He said, "Son, you are right back in the village from which you have started. And we are glad that you are here, because now we can do the dance." He called all the people out. He called all the people of that village out to the dancing circle. He called the village drummer out to the dancing circle, and that drummer began to drum, and those people began to dance. They danced sweetly. They danced solely. They danced directly from the return of that young man. It went something like this. Those people, they danced serenely. They danced sweetly. They danced directly from the return of that young man. I wish we could have been there. Because if we were there, maybe this dance would still be going on today. But like I tell you in the beginning of the story, this story comes from a culture that no longer exists. And like that culture, this tale too must come to its end. That's the story of the half man.